Joining us to clarify on the buyback news, Mr. S.N. Subrahmanyan, CEO and MD L&T joins in to discuss more. Mr. Subrahmanyan, great to have you on the show. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. First and foremost, explain to us what the situation is currently with the cancellation coming through on the buyback from SEBI. What is your next course of action?
The buyback proposal was filed with SEBI on October 8th this year for last year, October 2018, for their comments after we got our shareholders' approval for the same. As you know, we had requested for a buyback of 9,000 crores at a price of about 1475. One of the requirements was that the debt equity ratio of the company post buyback should not be more than 2:1. As per law, this was to be ascertained based on the standalone entity, that is L&T. L&T's debt to equity ratio, as you know, is 0.17, hardly 10,000 crores of debt on the scale of operations that we have. So we had taken legal views on this and gone forward with the same. However, SEBI has ascertained that for the group as a whole, as per their internal practice, our group exceeds 2:1. This is factually so because we have L&T Finance, which is a NBFC. And as NBFCs goes, they borrow money and lend money. And it's got 80,000 crores of debt from that point of view. And therefore, taking the group as a whole, they have requested us not to go forward with the buyback.
You know, that aside, and I'm glad that you're getting candid with this explanation, I think what the markets and your investors are not lacking at this point is that a conglomerate with the kind of lineage that L&T comes from and as large as you was not aware of the buyback contours or the compliance regulations both from the Companies Act and SEBI, and, you know, still issued a buyback notice.
One can know what is there as per law and what is legitimately publicized. So what is an internal rule cannot be known by us. We went by what was the rule and what was publicized based on legal opinions. If there's an internal rule based on various happenings in the market that one has to consider the total group debt, then it is a different matter. From our point of view, L&T Finance is a non-banking financial company. And where the non-banking financial companies run is they cannot collect public deposits. So you have to necessarily borrow and lend. And that's a non-recourse kind of functioning. To combine that to a total debt, in our view, was something which we are learning right now.
The option at your hand, would a special dividend be an alternative?
Let's munch this right now, and the whole idea was to return back money to the shareholders. So there are other options available. We'd look at it very seriously.
You will give money back to the shareholder. The only option is dividend. In case of a dividend, A, it's not a very tax efficient instrument.
I agree with you.
And B, your return ratios, which is the ultimate objective of a company to reward shareholders, that may not improve.
No, there are other ways to look at it. The company is on a growth path. The company has been doing well over the last few quarters. So the idea was, since we had surplus cash, one of the thought process was to do a buyback. Now, if that is not possible, we'll have to think of other ways. We are still working on it. We'll get back as and when we decide something.
To give money back to the shareholders, or you think that now, looking at the fact that business is opening up, cyclical demand is back, you may actually not consider giving money back to shareholders?
Ultimately, shareholders and stakeholders are what make us up, right? So we have to continuously enhance shareholder value, and if you look at our track record over the last few years, that's what we've been doing. So we continue to keep that foremost in our mind, and the business works on that principle that when people invest in your platform, you've got to return money back to the shareholders. Of course, business is growing, there are other opportunities available, there are places to invest, which is all part of the way to enhance shareholder value. So all that will be taken into consideration before we decide on the way forward. This was one of the way forwards. That it has not happened is a temporary blip. We'll see what else to do.
Okay, I respect the fact that you've been so frank and honest. Just one or two follow-up questions. And I completely, respect the fact that L&T Finance debt should not be considered as part of L&T, because for finance company, they need to borrow because they are in the business of lending and borrowing. What stops you from going against SEBI?
And they have no other method of getting money into their legitimate operations.
So what stops you from, challenging this order?
Well, one takes life as it comes, and you can't keep challenging everything. Let's see what happens, right? Yeah.
No, just as a follow-up, I mean, there is some talk in the market, Mr. Subrahmanyan, that you could approach the Securities Appellate Tribunal for a resolution.
We will appeal. We will look forward. We don't take statutory authorities and governments for that kind of route. L&T is not known for it. We will look at all possibilities. After all, we have strong financials. We are doing well, and therefore, I suppose market regulators also are aware of this. We'll appeal to them again and see how to take it forward.
Possibilities a couple of times in this interview, Mr. Subrahmanyan. We've obviously, as part of our job, tried to understand what are those possibilities before you. Would it be a special dividend? Would it be, having a dialogue again with SEBI in order to reconsider this decision?
I wish I had the computer mind like yours to think of all possibilities in nanoseconds. We will take it forward as it comes, and if there's something good, we'll come back to you.
But I'm sure, Mr. Subrahmanyan, you've set a deadline for yourself. You've decided to pay back the shareholders, whatever route it may be. But what's the timeline? When is it that the board is going to meet next to really decide what's the next course of action?
No, I don't think there's any board meeting particularly on this issue. The board meeting is there on the 25th for the quarterly results. And then, of course, this will get discussed therein, and we see how to move it forward.
So we look forward to interacting with you on 25th. Thank you for patiently answering all our questions on behalf of everybody from ET Now.
Absolutely a pleasure. Thank you.